They call it growth, a beautiful word, dressed in the robes of progress. But sometimes, it's just another cage, one with prettier walls. In the world of self-help, you're never quite done. There's always a new routine, a new habit, a new book that promises to fix what you didn't know was broken. You wake up at 5 a.m., not because you want to, but because someone on the internet convinced you that winners rise early. You journal because the algorithm says it rewires your brain. You meditate, fast, visualize, affirm, manifest, and yet somehow, you still feel empty. The illusion is seductive, that if you just work a little harder on yourself, you'll finally feel whole. But this pursuit of constant improvement becomes a slow, silent violence. It tells you, you are not enough. Not yet, maybe never. Self-help, at its worst, is just capitalism wearing a wellness mask. It turns your soul into a product, to be refined, optimized, and sold back to you. And so you grind, not for meaning, but for metrics. But what if you were never supposed to become a project? What if the most radical thing you could do was stop trying to improve yourself and start learning how to live with yourself? They told you the answers were within, that you were the problem and the solution. So you bought the books, listened to the podcasts, wrote down your affirmations with shaking hands. But here's the trap no one warned you about. When the system fails, you don't blame the system. You blame yourself. You think, maybe I didn't want it badly enough. Maybe I wasn't disciplined enough. Maybe I just don't deserve it. In a world obsessed with personal responsibility, there's no room for nuance. No room to say, I'm tired, I'm grieving, I'm overwhelmed. Because self-help doesn't like your complexity. It prefers you neat, organized, color-coded in a bullet journal. It demands linear progress in a world that moves in spirals. And so, slowly, subtly, self-help becomes self-harm, wrapped in good intentions. Tied with the ribbon of growth, you become addicted to fixing yourself, as if your soul were a spreadsheet with missing data. You punish your humanity because someone told you healing should look like hustle. But not all pain is a puzzle to solve. Not all suffering is a sign that you're failing. Sometimes you're not broken. You're just human. And in that breath, you begin to question the entire framework. Not you, but the map you were given. Suffering used to be sacred. Now, it's monetized. In the self-help industry, your wounds are a business opportunity. Your pain has a price tag. Your longing becomes clickbait. There are coaches selling salvation for $999 a month. Influencers giving trauma advice in 30-second reels. Ebooks promising enlightenment delivered instantly, no shadow work required. We've created a culture where healing is content, where breakdowns are aesthetic, where the darker your story, the brighter the spotlight. But no one tells you that many of these gurus aren't selling wisdom, they're selling performance. Not depth, but the illusion of depth. Pain packaged for virality. Carl Jung once warned, beware of unearned wisdom, because when you try to buy healing without dissent, you skip the darkness that forges meaning. And the algorithm? It doesn't care about your healing. It rewards your crisis, especially if you make it look beautiful. So you start to wonder, am I trying to grow or just trying to keep up with the performance of growth? Because when everyone's pretending to be healed, no one feels safe to be broken. And maybe that's the real sickness. Not that we suffer, but that we've forgotten how to suffer honestly. Growth, they say, is beautiful, but real growth is rarely photogenic. It's not a morning routine. It's not a vision board. It's not a smiling selfie with the caption, healing. Real growth looks like silence, like disappearing for a while, like admitting that you don't know who you are anymore, The self-help world often confuses performance with transformation. It teaches you how to look healed, how to talk in polished phrases, how to turn your breakdown into a TED Talk. But healing isn't a story you tell. It's a story you survive. And sometimes, surviving doesn't look like progress. It looks like stillness, or even regression. Carl Jung believed that true growth only comes through confrontation with the shadow, the parts of ourselves we'd rather disown. But the internet doesn't reward shadow work. It rewards shiny answers, quick turnarounds, instant transcendence. Growth isn't linear. It's not pretty. It doesn't come with a content calendar. It comes in waves, in silence, in breakdowns that teach you what no book ever could. And sometimes it means doing nothing, not reading another self-help book, not optimizing, not grinding, just sitting with the discomfort, with the questions, with yourself. As the Stoics once said, the goal is not to be untouchable, but to be unshaken by the chaos of life. Not to become perfect, but to become real. Maybe healing doesn't begin with doing more. Maybe it starts with unlearning the noise, the pressure, the endless whisper that says you are not enough unless you're becoming more. The truth is, you were never broken, just buried under expectations, algorithms, and the weight of a world that profits from your pain. You don't need another productivity hack. You need permission to rest, to feel, to exist without explanation. The most radical act in a culture addicted to self-optimization might be to say, I don't need to be better. I just need to be real. Carl Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. You don't become whole by chasing light. You become whole by walking through the dark and lighting a match with your bare hand. And maybe that's the self-help no one talks about. The one that doesn't promise transformation, only truth. You don't need to climb higher. You just need to come home.